Ovals are very special, and I think racers like to go out there and race. They like to be competitive. They like to have people around them all the time and really be in the thick of the action, if you will. And I think the IRL series right now brings that to us for a driver and also for a spectator.
In the spring of 1994, a dream was born. A dream designed to reintroduce open-wheel oval track racing to fans of America's fastest-growing spectator sport. Competitive, cost-effective, safe, and above all, exciting wheel-to-wheel racing action.
We should have some kind of a trophy dash to the finish. They're halfway through the backstretch and headed toward Gary Lee. No team orders here. No, it's a tail. Lyondike looks to the high side by side in a three. Lyondike takes the lead.
It would restore the tradition of American open-wheel racing to a prominent place in the hearts and minds of race fans everywhere. And it would be called the Indy Racing League. With majestic color and celebratory excitement, one of the most talked about motorsports events of modern times occurred on January 27, 1996. It was there in Orlando, amid the splendor that is the Magic Kingdom, that the Indy Racing League was born. The Pep Boys Indy Racing League, a series made up exclusively of oval tracks. Without a doubt, the oval track has become the venue of choice in America in the 90s. And with the explosive popularity of NASCAR, a series dominated by ovals, America's love affair with the oval appears stronger than ever.
For the average viewer, I would say you can liken it to probably trying to go to work in the morning when the speed limit's 55, but you have to go through there at 100.
90% of the ovals you go to, you can see all the way around the racetrack, and that's what people want to see.
The fans really do like the ovals, where they can see the whole track and they can see and follow the action. And it's pure American racing.
It's fun to drive. It's fun to go race these high bank tracks, and we can run side by side in the corners, and just puts on a great show. That's what people want to see.
Long before there was a Pep Boys Indy Racing League, Americans were racing on ovals. The board track era of the 20s and 30s created some of the most exciting racing ever seen. Made entirely of wood, the board tracks were fast, furious, and extremely dangerous.
My dad never talked of danger. Whether it was dirt or whether it was brick or whether it was board, it was just a place to race and put bread and butter on the table.
Board track racing, without it, we would not have had the sophisticated race car that we have today because of the demands for speed and for lightness and everything from running the board tracks. The technology just advanced in a tremendous rate.
The end of the board speedways and the almost total extinction of road racing made dirt track racing the standard course of the 1930s. Most of these races were held at state fairgrounds on tracks designed for racing horses.
I can just envision probably the way dirt track racing started was the farmhands, a couple of farmhands had souped up Model Ts, and they put out 4 hay bales to denote the corners of the racetrack. And after work, they would get their souped up Model Ts and go out there and race one another around this oval shaped racetrack.
As American oval track racing progressed from the farms to the fairgrounds, the dirt tracks were a staple part of the national championship picture in the 1950s and 60s.
It was a carnival atmosphere. We were the show. We were in front of the main grandstand. A lot of people. Folks came out to sit there gape-jawed watching these daredevils go around the dirt track. And it was great.
Though pavement and later road and street courses became part of the championship trail in the 70s and 80s, there was trouble ahead. As auto racing reached a boom period in the 1990s with the growth of NASCAR in America, the championship auto racing teams, or kart numbers, were not keeping pace. And as open-wheel IndyCar racing became more expensive and less Americanized, fewer American drivers could afford the high cost of racing. Dreams of an American oval track racer being able to afford the series, and thus Indianapolis, were all but fading.
I just didn't want it to be a glorified Formula One, and that's what they're made cars, just a glorified Formula One. I want to run in the United States. That's where A.J. Foyt's name was made. I love racing in the United States from the American people. That's who made me what I am today, and that's who I want to perform in front of, even with me being a car owner.
Concerned that the cornerstone of his business, the Indianapolis 500-mile race, was becoming less and less a priority, Tony George tried meeting with the leaders of CART in 1991. When his concerns went unaddressed, George took matters into his own hands. And in 1994, his announcement of the formation of the Indy Racing League shook the racing world.
I accept the criticism. I guess when you're in a position like I'm in, you're subject to criticism, but you know, the Indy Racing League is going to have a major impact on the world of motorsports in the future.
Included in George's vision was a key role for one of modern auto racing's greatest ambassadors, Leo Mel, the longtime worldwide head of racing for Goodyear.
It is a very great honor for me to participate in this Indy Racing League with Tony George. I believe in the concept. I've never been associated with anything that lost very much, and I wouldn't have come here if I wasn't absolutely positive that this was the right thing to do, and it's going to be a big winner.
The dream is real. The green flag is out from Dwayne Sweeney, and Buddy Lazier jumps into the lead.
For Tony George's dream to continue to grow, he would need to reach new auto racing fans as well as the old. And Walt Disney World in Orlando, the #1 tourist destination in the world, soon became host to the inaugural IRL event. The race was a sold-out success. Over 50,000 spectators watched Buzz Calkins battle Tony Stewart to the checkered flag. Race fans were impressed.
I thought that it was the most fantastic, exciting thing that I've done in a long, long time. And I've done some pretty cool stuff lately, like flying an F-16 simulator. This beats that.
Once Disney set the pace, the list of IRL racing venues continued to grow. And soon, new magnificent oval tracks were being built in Las Vegas, Colorado Springs, and Dallas-Fort Worth.
The crowd we had last year at Texas was unbelievable. I mean, I was totally floored. It was great the support they gave to the series and to come out and see IndyCar racing, and for IndyCar racing to get back into that market. I mean, it's a great area for us to be in.
In addition to seating upwards of 150,000 spectators at some of these new tracks, the Pep Boys Indy Racing League also announced that it would expand into the heart of NASCAR country. Though racing at night had been tried as far back as 1905 with 24-hour events, the IRL brought modern-day Indy cars under the lights for the first time.
I love the night racing. I think it adds to the aura of the whole event.
3 wide, Billy Boat to the low side, Buddy Lazier up high, John Paul Jr. on the top of the stack, give the lead to Billy Boat. Unbelievable, it appeared to be dropping off the pace.
In an effort to curb the skyrocketing costs of modern-day IndyCar racing, the Pep Boys Indy Racing League introduced a new chassis and engine formula for 1997. Gone were the high-pitched turbochargers of the past. In were the loud and proud, normally aspirated V8 power plants of Oldsmobile and Nissan. The days of the $1.5 million engine lease programs were now a part of IndyCar history, and teams would once again be able to work on their own engine.
Tonight, we introduce to you the future of the Indy Racing League in these cars that will compete for the heavyweight championship of auto racing.
Along with the roar of the new V8s came the new chassis to house those power plants, G-Force, Dallara, and the Riley and Scott.
We will have race cars which are about half price of the previous cars. The engines will be worked on by expert mechanics and turned around. You don't need 20 engines if you can build them in your own shop.
Though produced in a short amount of time, safety was not spared in the design, and the new IRL chassis are taller, wider, and stronger than the IndyCar chassis of the past.
I believe we've really been able to produce a really quality item in a very, very short space of time. So that was the main challenge. We had to produce a really good race car in very little time.
As the IRL grew, the issue of driver safety came to the forefront. Too many injuries, said the critics. The cars were too rigid, and the drivers absorbing too much impact. So rear-end attenuators were attached to the gearbox in '97 to soften those blows. And for this year, additional changes have been made.
First of all, they had to raise the roll bar 2 inches. We found the driver's head for the tall guys was up in the air box. So we've raised the roll bar up 2 inches.
Additionally, the rear end attenuators designed to absorb up to 50 Gs will be continued. The bell housing connecting the engine to the gearbox has become a crush zone, and the gearbox case itself has been lightened.
I think the IRL really took a committed look to that and have done everything they could do. I think the cars are going to be a lot different than last year, a lot safer. I think the thing that a lot of people forget is, take kart for example. If they ran all their races on ovals, anytime you run an Indy car on an all-oval series, it's going to be more dangerous. It's going to be more crashes than on a road, half and half or a road course type series. So I think people need to keep that in mind, that these aren't stock cars where there's tons of room to bend and break them. These are fragile little missile type cars, and maybe with that comes a little added risk. But I think the IRL's done a good job going into '98.
Lyondike, who set the track record in qualifying yesterday, is only a half lap away from picking up the victory in the Duralube 200. He is off the 4th corner. Dwayne Sweeney, dual checkered flags, and Arie Lyondike wins here in Arizona.
On the heels of the inaugural Indy 200 at Walt Disney World in January 1996, the IRL's inaugural season continued to flourish, with tight battles and exciting racing remaining part of the IRL entree.
Here they are on the main straightaway at the line. He might be making a move at 1. They are side by side, and he's got the move made. Buddy Lazier has taken the lead. Davy Jones in the second, and there goes Buddy, and he's on a tear.
In a race that saw the 3rd closest finish in Indy 500 history, the IRL drivers put on one of the most exciting races ever at the old Brickyard. Just 2 months earlier, a practice crash in Phoenix left Buddy Lazier with multiple fractures of the vertebrae and pelvis.
That was probably the toughest hour to hour and a half of my life, because both my wife and I felt there might be paralysis.
Both of us later on, Bob and I, talked about the fact that it seemed, possible it could entirely change Buddy's life, and it could entirely change ours as well.
My mind does drift back to how hard that impact was. I mean, it rocked my world.
You see other drivers crash, and that's a fear that you have in the back of your mind, and Buddy always promised me that would never happen to him.
It was a very frightening thing, and even today, I still hurt tremendously from it.
Incredibly, Lazier overcame the odds, and 8 weeks after crashing in Phoenix, found victory lane at Indianapolis. The inaugural IRL season in the record books, the first points championship was shared by Disney winner Buzz Calkins and Scott Sharp. And as the 1997 IRL season approached, little did anyone realize just how ultra-competitive the racing would become.
He tried to get by Buddy Lazier, who rides in second, and that is the battle right now to put Buddy a lap down. And a spin right in front of the leader. Yellow flag flies on the racetrack.
Tony Stewart dominated the opening race of season number 2 in Loudon, New Hampshire before his electronic system shut down, allowing Scott Sharp to capture his first ever IndyCar victory for car owner A.J. Foyt. As the son of 6-time National Sports Car Club of American champion Bob Sharp, it was somewhat natural that Scott Sharp would harbor the same interests as his father. With a resume that is racing savvy, Scott started racing in go-karts at the age of 8. A winner of SCCA Amateur and Trans Am championships, Sharp has also won at the grueling 24 Hours of Daytona. It seems Scott Sharp has always been a racer.
I grew up on racetracks. Yeah, my dad raced for 18 years himself, and basically from the time I was 6 months old, Mom started bringing me to races and started helping the guys when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, polishing wheels or something. I was just brought up around racing my whole life, really. So it was never a question in our family of, am I going to race? It was what, when, and where.